Good morning. I am live and now I'm looking for something. Give me 1 second. Motion, dim. Now, what did I do with that? Give me a sec. Give me a sec. Give me a sec. One sec, promise. Ah, yes, there it is. There she is. There she is. I'm quoting Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. You like Star Trek there, Mr. Pugh? I like Star Trek. Let's move. Don't want to see that. No, don't want to see that. This makes me unhappy, Mr. Halleck. Nope. Nope. Maybe. Okay. I will be with you in a short second. I'm sorry you haven't looked so close at my face. I'm sure that now I'm unhappy. There it is. Of course, there it is. Of course. Thank you. Let's begin then. Hopefully you've paged up your Arts and Humanities, the Industrial Age, Spirit of Materialism. We're going to finish today. The new movement in painting was called the Impressionist Movement. Now, I have sent you all kind of pictures of the Impressionist Movement in your canvas. I sent another video talking about Impressionism. It took the name Impressionism from a critic who had criticized Claude Monet's Impression Sunrise, which you have a picture of. They, the Impressionists, were primarily French painters who felt like their works would never be accepted in the official art world. Because at the time the Impressionists lived, and we're talking about here the second half of the 19th century. At the time the Impressionists lived, Paris was the center of the art world. And the center of the art world in Paris was the French Academy of Art. And the French Academy of Art had this very defined idea of what art was supposed to be. And in the French Academy of Art, what art was supposed to be was to be photographic pictures of things. And a group of these guys, Monet, Manet, M-A-N-E-T, and these names are going to be on your test, Monet, Manet, Degas, D-E-G-A-S, Degas. Degas was the guy that liked dancers. Monet is the guy with water lilies. Manet is the guy who did luncheon on the grass. And then my favorite, Renoir. Renoir in his Portrait of Two Sisters. Why is Renoir my favorite? Renoir, and I don't like Impressionism, but Renoir is my favorite. I hate to sound like a rube here, but Renoir is my favorite because with Renoir, you could tell what he was painting. You look at the painting, Oh yeah, I can tell what that is. For a lot of the Impressionists, you could not. Now, in the Impressionists, there was a group, or rather, there was one painter. Yeah. Um, the four big painters of the Impressionist group are French. They all lived in Paris and lived in the poor regions of Paris because, yeah, the Impressionists were the original starving artists. And when I say starving, they didn't have any money. And, they barely scrimped by. But they were so dedicated to art. They all knew each other. But there was one Impressionist artist that did not come from France. Her name was Mary Cassatt, Cassat. And I've seen her paintings. And you can tell she's a little different. She's not, she's not Monet. She's not these other guys. Anyway, following in Edouard Manet's footsteps, the painters became the first of the so-called modern era of art. The pure Impressionist style sought to capture the fleeting effects of light and color with rapid, sketchy brushstrokes. I can't paint. I don't know anything about painting. I'm not even good at drawing. Although when I was a nerdy little kid, Mr. Halleck, when I was a nerdy little kid, I would sit in my classes to where, I'd already finished my work and was bored with it. And what I liked to do was to draw pictures of battles between sailing ships. Later on, I graduated to airplanes. I was a nerd. What can I say? Oh yeah. So the movement includes names like, there you see, Claude Monet, Edouard Manet, Pierre Auguste Renoir, Bertha Morisot, forget him, Edgar Degas, and the American Cassatt, Mary Cassatt. Manet, the bar at the Folies Boucher, Bertha Morisot, View from Paris, Claude Monet's the Saint Lazare Station, Pierre Auguste Renoir's Moulin de Galette, which is horse, and of course Mary Cassatt, the Floating Party, Edgar Degas, Always Dancers. Okay. The artist then began to drift away from the conventional more and more. Even Impressionism was abandoned in favor of a movement then called Post-Impressionism. So now we have Impressionism and Post-Impressionism. These works included Impressionist themes, only once again going in different directions. The most important of the Post-Impressionists are Georges Seurat, Paul Gauguin, and of course Vincent Van Gogh. Here, friends, Romans, Van Gogh, lend me your ears. So, where Monet had dashed his brush across the canvas, Seurat applied paint with thousands of meticulous dots. And basically the technique is pretty simple to describe. To do what he would do, he would take a very thin pen, paint brush, probably about as thick as this pen, dip it in paint and put a dot on the canvas. And again, and again. You know how, for example, this picture you're looking at now, or your television set, is made up of hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of pixels. Well, basically, the painting Sunday afternoon on the island of La Grande Jatte, which is, I've sent you pictures of, that also. Basically, if you understand what pixels are in a picture on your TV, then you understand how he did that. What is amazing in that, again, I've seen that painting, which I've sent you, and you have it. I've seen that painting. Your book says it took him 2 years to finish that. I can believe that. I actually did the walk around recorded version of the tour of the Art Institute of Chicago. They would give you this little headpiece device, and you go to each painting, punch in a number, and it would start talking about it. Well, the recording said it took him 4 years to finish it. I'd believe that just as much, because if you look at that picture, it is comprised of literally hundreds of thousands of individual colored dots. It's incredible. It's just incredible. It is also probably why it has not been duplicated. There aren't too many examples of pointillism in art. I did see one other in the Art Institute, but it is just incredible. Anyway, Paul Cézanne painted directly from nature in brilliant colors, including greens, blues, and yellows. He did, another famous subject or common subject for Artist Day are bowls of fruit, apples and oranges. He said, treat nature through the cylinder, the sphere, and the cone. He tried to capture nature's immediacy while exploring its essence. And the other two paintings, I have no idea what they are. Paul Gauguin used a bold design and intense color to express the elemental forces of human feeling. Gauguin is famous for this self-portrait with a halo. Gauguin spent much of his life in the South Pacific, and even though he was married, his wife was back in France. Gauguin took a Polynesian wife. I guess he got bored. Gauguin's vision of after the sermon painting was of Puritan women envisioning the biblical story of Jacob resting with the angel of God. But of course, the most famous of the post-impressionists, Vincent Van Gogh. Not Van Gogh, Van Gogh, Dutch painter. He suffered from depression and several other maladies. He moved to the south of France to do his paintings, liked his landscapes. He applied paint thickly, often with a knife, creating a design that showed he had seen a lot of Japanese paintings. Of course, Van Gogh's most famous painting is Starry Night, which you've seen over and over again. And yes, his depression and unhappy life eventually led to his suicide. He had cut off his ear, and then he eventually committed suicide. Yeah. All right, Roman numeral 11. Let's finish this. The Industrial Revolution brought incredible wealth, higher standard of living to many, but it also brought abject misery, poverty, and exploitation of millions. I've already talked about this, especially in the developing worlds of Asia, Africa, and South America, where the wealth comes from. Plays made a comeback during this period. Reality pieces such as Anton Chekhov's The Three Sisters and The Cherry Orchard detailed the abuses of Russian peasant classes. The Norwegian Heinrich Ibsen wrote A Doll's House, which was revolutionary, in which a woman who had forged documents and had worked slavishly to help her ailing husband was later rebuked by that husband. She realized that she must be a doll and just do her job. The last scene, in which she tells her husband that she's divorcing him, sent shockwaves across Europe because it made a heroine, a hero, out of a woman who's standing up for herself, which was never done in the 19th century. The novel continued on its strong run as a form of entertainment. Fyodor Dostoevsky wrote On Crime and Punishment, in which the character's kindness turns to cruelty and murder. And The Brothers Karamazov explores three brothers, one of whom is accused of murdering the father. Dostoevsky seemed very concerned with morality in an age of materialism. The German Friedrich Nietzsche, who I do not understand to this day, decried both Christianity and democracy, claiming that Christianity and democracy are slave mentalities. Nietzsche and Sigmund Freud claimed that there was no God. no absolute right or wrong. Yes, Nietzsche came up with the idea of the Übermensch. Nietzsche said, you should do whatever you want to do. Nietzsche said you should not be limited by moral codes such as the Ten Commandments or such as, Christian or Jewish or Muslim morality. He said, he put up Napoleon as an example of a guy who got what he wanted. The Übermenschen, meaning the overman, the strong man, the superman, to oversimplify it. And there it is. That finishes that unit. We have a test tomorrow. I notice a lot of you guys who are taking these tests are doing rather well. I'm happy you're paying such good attention. What will we do Wednesday? I'll probably come in and say goodbye, and that will be it. With that, this is me signing off.